Welcome to East Meets West. You know him as the host of the podcast Talking Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other. Also, the second most important person to hail from Freehold, New Jersey, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Corey Nathan.
And he is the 7-time Emmy-winning broadcast journalist, born and raised in beautiful Los Angeles. Rick Garcia, how you doing, Rick?
Happy New Year, Corey.
Happy New Year.
Do we talk about each other enough? I'm curious. I mean, I like all the nice things you say about me. Maybe we should just spend time on that.
Enough about me. Let's talk about what you think about me.
So here's the thing. Was it the Boomtown Rats that did the song, I Don't Like Mondays? I think they did the song. Yes, they did the song. I'm just going to say, I'm going to answer my own question.
Put together Live Aid. I thought it might have been Boomtown Rats.
He's the guy in Boomtown Rats.
Oh, he is the guy in Boomtown Rats.
Boomtown Rats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's before my time, Rick.
We'll have to confirm that before we release this podcast. But I will say to you, if you're an NFL coach, the Monday after the regular season ends, which they now call Black Monday, is not your favorite time of year. If you're a coach that was on the hot seat. The typical array of firings took place. The Cardinals fired Jonathan Gannon. He had an up and down tenure with the Cardinals, to say the least, in my opinion, in the most difficult division in the NFL right now, the NFC West, right? So he wound up 15-36 after 3 seasons. And we'll go through each of these, but let me just tell you the firings first of all. The Raiders fired Pete Carroll after 1 season. Man, that happened fast. Of course, the good news is they get the number 1 pick in the draft next year. Cleveland Browns fired Kevin Stefanski. Some thought that was one of those 50-50 chances there. Raheem Morris gets fired as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. He left the Rams as Sean McVay's defensive coordinator, went over there. And as the season ended, by the way, they were the hottest team in the NFL, but he couldn't survive their record, which wound up being a 3-way tie in their division with Carolina and Tampa Bay. Earlier in the season, the Giants, of course, fired Brian Daboll, and the Tennessee Titans fired Brian Callahan. First question for you is: do you have a problem with any of those firings? And then we should get into what this means for those teams and how they go forward.
I was a little surprised about the Stefanski firing, but 6 years is pretty good. That's a pretty good run. It's more indicative of some of the dysfunction in that franchise, especially the signing of the quarterback. Man, that just hampered that franchise for years to come. So it'll be interesting to see what that quarterback room, that's another conversation, what the quarterback room looks like next season.
Well, I was just going to add to that, how much is this is another consideration for coaches. How much of do you have to wonder if the owners got, tipping the scales a little too much or getting too involved? That's an organization where sometimes you hear rumblings about some of the decisions being made above the heads of the main principals, the GM and the vice president, but that the owner might be, like a lot of the Dallas Cowboys, maybe making some of those decisions for the team. Here's what I do know about coaches that get fired. Usually they get fired even if they're a good coach, if they don't have a good quarterback. And you pointed that out with Cleveland. There's an example of where their quarterback room has been in disarray. I don't know that they've got any answers going forward. I'm not going to jump on the Shador bus, and I don't think Dylan Gabriel's the answer yet. We don't know. But Deshaun Watson, who had a really decent career early in his NFL career, got to a good start, just fell apart off the field and on the field.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Since you brought it up, that'll be interesting to see, because I think that Shador gave you enough this year, and we'll get to this, but he gave you enough this year to prove that he belongs in the room. He doesn't necessarily need to be handed the starter's job in preseason, but he definitely belongs in the room. The question is he the backup or is he the third string when they start the year next year? So we'll talk about that in a second.
Sure.
But in terms of firings, I thought the only one that might have been a little unfair and premature was Brian Callahan. He was only 5-6. He was 1-5 to start the year, but it was only his second season. It felt like they were just starting to build towards something.
Yeah, usually they talk about like a 3-year plan for NFL coaches or coaches in general, 3 to 4 year plan. And so let's go down the teams then, and let's talk about where the failures may have occurred, and then let's save the Giants for last, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
Atlanta Falcons firing Raheem Morris, who is an incredible motivator. Players love him. This is his second run. He made an attempt with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My question for them, they've got an amazing running back with Bijan Robinson. They've got some decent wide receivers. I just don't know that they could do it with Penix. And
Yeah.
he brought over one of the offensive coaches from the Rams to be his offensive coordinator. I don't know that Penix is the answer. We know that the Cousins is at the tail end of his career, will probably finish his career as a backup unless something miraculous happens. I don't think they're settled as far as quarterbacks.
I was surprised that they fired him because they made a decent case in their division. It's not the strongest division in the league, but they made a decent case, a decent run toward the end of the year.
They did.
So I was surprised that they didn't give him at least one more year to see how it worked out, especially given that there's such uncertainty in the quarterback's room. And, to your point, you don't have a quarterback. You're not going to make a long run in the playoffs.
Okay, so the next couple of teams we're going to talk about, same problem. Arizona Cardinals. Is Murray the quarterback going forward? I just don't think so. This is a guy who can be spectacular in one moment, but then you hear people complaining about him in the locker room and his teammates not being fond of him and not the kind of guy that's going to put the effort into the film study. And so the question is, does it matter who your head coach is if you don't have a quarterback?
Exactly. So that division, whoever goes there, they got an uphill battle, not just because of Kyler Murray, but because of the division that they're in. So if I was a coach who had some leverage, we'll talk about some of the candidates here in a second, but that's not one that I would. That wouldn't be top on my list of places I'd want to go.
Right. So Las Vegas Raiders, same thing. They do not have a quarterback. Geno Smith was the idea that Pete Carroll hatched because he coached Geno Smith in Seattle. I think he felt like he could get something a little bit more tread out of that tire, and it didn't work. They were the worst team in the NFL. The good news is they get the number one draft pick. Carroll will not be around to see who that is. So you bring in Tom Brady, seems to be very involved as he's one of the owners in this operation. They're going to go all out to try to rebuild, I think, their everything, their front office and their head coach. But, man, the scouting and the drafting part is going to be crucial because they're not going to turn it around next year. That's for sure.
If there is a reality show for behind the scenes off season, that's the one. That's the room that I want to be in, between Mark Davis and Tom Brady and some of the characters that they might be bringing in to try to figure out how to turn this franchise around. I want to see those interviews of head coaches. Yeah. I want to see it all. I'm really curious how that plays out this year.
And a guy that I used to interview and cover when the Raiders were in Los Angeles, Al Davis, would be turning right now, right? He would be turning in his grave, nothing about excellence when you think about the current Raiders organization.
So you used to interview Al Davis?
Yeah, back in the day.
Oh man! Well, you have plenty of Tommy Lasorda
character.
Stories. What was one of your favorite moments with Al Davis?
He was a little aloof. I mean, he could be accessible at times and then not at all. There was sort of a mystery and a secrecy to Al Davis that I loved about him. It wasn't colorful like Tommy Lasorda by any stretch of the imagination. Wore the same sweatpants out to the sweat outfits out to the practices and stuff. But he had some winners. He knew how to put some winners together.
He did.
We talked about Cleveland. Same situation there. Now here's what I'll say about the Cleveland gig. You have some good talent. You have some good players there. It's just the big question mark at quarterback. So we'll see who they want. I mean, that to me seems like I think I might have given Stefanski another opportunity had they found a quarterback for him, like what happened with Indianapolis and how they stumbled upon Daniel Jones and were able to do something. Because I think with Stefanski, he needs the right quarterback.
Stefanski is one of the top candidates. I'd love to have a guy like that have a year off to kind of assess what these last 6 years have been like. And I think that if he has just a year off, let alone whether it's 2 years or 1 year, but even a year off just to really gather his thoughts about what he learned over these 6 years. And his next run, I think, is
Yeah.
going to be a really strong run. But I think he's going to be at the top of the candidate list for any number of these teams that are looking for a new head coach.
So we think Tennessee might have a quarterback in Cam Ward. I think the jury's still out on the rookie, but
Yeah.
he coming out of college was highly heralded, has a lot to offer. I just worry in Tennessee that they don't have enough around him.
Hmm.
So if you come in this case, you've already got your quarterback, you accumulate draft picks, you give up, you trade down to a team that is quarterback hungry, and you accumulate some picks and try to go after. I think you want to build your both your offense and defensive line. I think
Yeah,
that's
that
first and foremost.
again, it's not they're not in the most competitive division in the league, so they can do a turnaround the way that Jacksonville did a turnaround. In just a year, if they put the right personnel in place, if put the right coaching staff in place. But I'll say this: I'll believe it when I see it. I'm just not sold on. I'm not even sold on Cam Ward, let alone the rest of the
Right,
organization.
I agree. And again, rookie season, you just don't know. Year two is going to be a big tell for
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
All right, how about those New York Giants?
How about this
Here's
New
what I will
York
tell you. This
Football
is a
Giants?
this is a team that has some stock.
We
I
have some
mean,
talent, baby.
there's some talent over there. You got a
Yeah.
receiver. You've got, I mean, come on, Jackson Dart. Is he going to be the real deal? We'll find out. That is going to be a very appealing job, I believe.
I think it's good. I think it's one of the most appealing jobs in the league. Partly, I mean, you just look at the team. Their defensive line is arguably among the best in the league. Yeah, they need more personnel in the secondary. They need more personnel. They need more personnel on the offensive line. That's why I was hoping for them to be either in the first or second position in the draft because they could trade down because they do have Jackson Dart. They could trade down for a few more picks in the draft to really make their offensive line more robust so that their talent is surrounded. Jackson Dart and Scadaboo, and I mean, Scadaboo's coming back from a pretty devastating injury,
He
as is
is, which
their
is tough
top
for a running
receiver.
back. But
Yeah,
this guy's such a throwback. I
yeah,
mean, when guys played with bones sticking out of the skin,
yeah, yeah.
skin during the game, I think he's going to be fine. It may be kind of an up and down second season, but then he'll be raring to go by the end of the second season, maybe season three.
But I'd like to. They have a decent receiving core. They have their top
Yep.
receiver coming back. I'd
Yep.
like to see them maybe find a higher end, higher ceiling tight end. But again, it's going to depend on who. I was surprised that they retained the GM. Did
Yeah.
that? Did that?
Shane.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, very often it's a package deal, like what they did in Atlanta, where
yeah,
the head coach and the GM both go. In Miami, they just got rid of the GM, but didn't get rid of the coach, Mike McDaniel. I know what you mean. Has Shane has he had enough chances? I think maybe he has,
yeah.
but this will be his last
This
chance.
will
That's
be
for
his
sure.
last. His
If he
last.
doesn't hit on this one, he's
So
going to be in big trouble.
in terms of candidates, though, I
Yeah.
was looking at some of the candidates, and we've talked about this before. But Chris
Uh-huh.
Shula looks really appealing. You know who I wasn't as familiar with? Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff
So
Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator in DC.
yes.
Yeah,
He
really
was a
interesting.
head coach in Arizona, okay, and he was and that was a strange hire. He was coaching in college, as everybody knows, took the Arizona job, didn't last there. I'm wondering with Kingsbury if he's more of a Josh McDaniel type. Josh McDaniel, as we know, was Belichick's offensive coordinator with Tom Brady, had all those great offenses. Then he went around the league as a head coach and didn't do so well. That doesn't mean that Josh McDaniel won't be a head coach at some point. But there was something about the connection that he had with players. In that role, you kind of have to be a bit of a father figure, and you have to have some wisdom, even if you are a young guy, a young coach. And so Kingsbury reminds me of that a little bit. Very very ultra focused in that offense. Can he be an umbrella kind of a guy, oversee things like a Mike Tomlin, where you hire people, put good people in place? I don't know. Shula's name comes up a lot. I don't know if he's ready yet. This was, I think, his second season with the Rams as defensive coordinator. People don't realize how involved McVay gets with his assistant coaches. Some will say to a fault. He's let some of that go, and he's more willing to hand things off. But I still believe that the coach that people need to keep an eye on is the Rams offensive coordinator.
Mike LaFleur. Yeah, that's your guy.
And I think so. Mike is Matt's brother, Matt, the Green Bay coach. They're all from the McVay
Yeah, McVay, Kyle
Shanahan
Shanahan. Yeah.
tree, right? So, and those guys have all done fairly well in the league. Just look around the league, and you've got some. I mean, the most recent example would be Liam Cohen, and Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. But before that, he coached for McVay twice.
Yeah.
So, I think that if you think about LaFleur is you know I think he's well crafted to be a head coach. He's very smart. He has the look. He talks like a diplomat and can be a good. He's not going to be your grumpy Belichick, or he's not going to talk like Rex Ryan. If on the East Coast you want that blue collar, rough New Yorkish kind of a guy, it's not LaFleur.
Yeah.
But if you want to have a guy that's going to, I think, take good care of that quarterback and be smart enough to bring in a good defensive coordinator so he doesn't have to worry about it. I think you might have a team of like a LaFleur, Raheem Morris,
Interesting.
as
Well,
as a head coach, defensive coordinator kind of a thing.
well, good overseeing a QB is why Cliff Kingsbury looks appealing to me, because he got the most out of Kyler Murray. I think he got the most at his tenure in DC. The rookie season of what's his name, the QB in DC in Washington. Gosh, I'm stumping myself now.
Jaden Daniels.
Thank you, Jaden Daniels. Got the most out of him, at least his first year. Some injury
Yep.
problems this year, but I do like the fact that he has some head coaching experience.
But some coordinators are meant to be coordinators.
Yeah,
I think
that's
Josh
fair.
McDaniel might be one of them. Steve Spagnuolo, who's the defensive coordinator for Kansas City, was the head coach of the Rams for a little
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
Great defensive coordinator. Don't know if he's a great head coach or not.
You know who I'm keeping my eye on, and he hasn't been fired yet, but it would be really. There's been talk that
Are you rooting?
John
Yeah.
Harbaugh might
Well,
be ending his time with the Ravens. That would be my top choice for the
well,
Giants.
then, so you want a defensive guy to run your team? I listen. I think it behooves most teams to go with an offensive genius to run your team and call plays, and then just hire the most badass defensive coordinator you can. I think that's the route to go. I've noticed that with defensive coaches in general, and this is a generalization, they tend to like a more conservative offense. They don't know enough about offense to put enough into offense.
I wouldn't call the Ravens offense a conservative offense.
Well, listen, they built that offense in a very defensive kind of a style
Yeah.
with some of the biggest offensive linemen you'll ever see in your life and one of the biggest running backs you'll ever see in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Their passing game is absolutely predicated upon the run. And they're more prolific passing this year after they changed their offensive coordinator. So that made a big difference.
One other name I'll throw
yes.
at you, Clint Kubiak. Have you paid any attention to him?
Yeah, absolutely. Seattle's offensive coordinator. So another guy to keep an eye on. Don't know if he's ready, if he's seasoned yet. I only mention LaFleur a lot because he had to deal with New York as a
That's
Jets
right.
offensive coordinator. And then being under McVay's wing a little bit longer, I think it's time to release the young chick, and I think although he may be the same age or older than McVay for all I know, so there are some good options out there for your team. Let's just see if you can't blow it.
No, we'll blow it. We'll blow it. I can guarantee you that.
And Stefanski wouldn't be a bad choice either, I think, with Jackson Dart.
Oh man,
We'll have to see. Here's what I will say finally with the Giants. They needed their offensive line improved tremendously. They still need more improvement on the offensive line so Jackson Dart doesn't have to take off and run because he's not going to have a long career if he keeps running all the time. It's
that
just
would not
gonna-
bother me one
Never
bit if
happened.
Stefanski ended up being the Giants head coach.
We talked about having to have a quarterback. We've been kind of on Shador Sanders' watch all year long because of how he came to be in the NFL draft and slipped to number 5. I mean, the 5th round, and all the hoopla that surrounds this young player whose personality is really bigger than his talent at this time. If he really buckled down and opened himself up to learning over the course of the season with Cleveland, then I think he deserves to come back. If you find them trying to trade him to another team, that will tell me that maybe they didn't see everything they needed to see from him as far as in the quarterback room. I don't mean on the field. We know he's got talent, no question about it. But is he going to take to the homework? Is he going to take to being in the classroom? Is he going because it's not all about going out and playing park football. Just you're not going to last that way as a quarterback. So we'll have to see. He finished the season in his last game against Cincinnati in a game that they won. Remember, it's all about winning. He completed 11 passes for 111 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Um, Pedestrian at best. I mean, not even pedestrian because when you look at some of the other numbers, Tyler Shuck completed 23 passes, 259 yards, and a touchdown. I think he might be for real. We'll find out in year two on him. We know that the Dart's incredible. He had 22 passes completed for 230 yards, two touchdowns. We know the energy that Dart brings to his teammates, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Riley Leonard shows up. The Notre Dame quarterback completes 21 passes, 270 yards, two touchdowns for the Indianapolis Colts. So I don't know where Shador lines up with those other characters that we've mentioned. But I don't think he did anything to blow me away. I think
No.
he is entitled to come back to camp and see if he can make the team.
Yeah, he earned his place in the room. At the very least, he earned a shot at being the backup. If Deshaun Watson is indeed if Deshaun Watson isn't traded in his last year in the contract or some other
Which will be hard to do because that contract is
that
so bad.
contract is
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
But at the very least, Shador earned his right to stay in the room because the stats are unimpressive, and I didn't
Yeah.
see market improvement from one week to the next. But the one stat is he got three wins on
Yeah.
that team. So that
Okay.
is saying something.
I'll go with you on that. All right. We've been talking about the playoffs for weeks, but we haven't been specifically diving into the playoffs in the
Yeah.
NFL. We knew that the games were around the corner. Postseason begins this weekend. In the AFC, number one seed turned out to be the Denver Broncos. They're going to get the bye, and the wild card teams are going to be the Steelers taking on the Texans in Houston, Jaguars at the Bills, and the Patriots at the Chargers. Over in the NFC, Seahawks get the number one seed. That was a real battle in the NFC West between the Seahawks, 49ers, and the Rams. Seahawks won out there. In the wild card games, the Rams will go to the Panthers. By the way, I may have misspoke in the Patriots Chargers game in terms of location, but the Patriots are playing the Chargers. The Rams are going to Carolina in the NFC. The 49ers and Eagles are going to match up, and the Bears and Packers are going to play each other. Just some initial thoughts. I'll just go down the list and why don't you pick winners for me?
Sure. So I think we're going to see a lot of away teams winning in the first round here.
Okay. All right.
I am not convinced. So my question in the AFC is it the Bills' year and they really seize a non-Kansas City year, or
Yeah.
are the Bills the Bills? If the Bills are
Good
just
point.
the Bills, going back to Buffalo 66, then okay, then I think the Broncos are just such a strong team. Bo Nix is for real.
Well,
Their defense
they're
is
not
just
playing though, so we're going to just talk about who's
just this
winning
round.
and
Okay,
losing.
just
Yeah.
this round. So the most interesting game is Steelers Texans. I do think the Texans have taken strides. So I think that out of that game, the Texans are
Yeah.
moving forward. Bills
Okay.
Jaguars.
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents at
Okay.
the same time. So you're picking the Texans over the Steelers. I
Yeah.
agree with you. I'm going to go Texans over the Steelers for the reason you stated. Their defense. I think their defense can stop the Steelers. All right.
Yeah.
Jaguars, Bills.
Jaguars Bills. Listen, I'd love to see the
Is-
Jaguars surprise us,
Yeah.
but I think the Bills are just so strong. They have so much experience now over these last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
They have two good quarterbacks, but I
Yeah.
do. If I had to flip a coin, I would say I would lean more towards it's the Bills' year. It's their time. They have some injury concerns, so that's the one question I have. But I do think they're coming out of this game.
Okay, I agree with you. I think it's going to be Bills over Jaguars long term for the playoffs. I still don't know whether Josh Allen is going to be Jim Kelly. And like you said, the Bills are the Bills, or if this is a different team. I frankly don't think they're the best team in the AFC. We'll talk about that in a second. Patriots, Chargers.
Okay, so it depends how healthy Herbert is. I think the Chargers, well coached, obviously, more experienced quarterback. I think it is their time to win at least a game in the playoffs. So if Herbert is healthy, I think the Patriots' record in the regular season was helped by the fact that they had the weakest schedule in the league.
Yeah.
So I think the Chargers are coming out of this game as well.
So we're going to find out who the Patriots are,
Yeah.
right? And this to me is one of those pick 'em games, flip a coin. I don't think it's cut and dried. I know that the Patriots steamrolled in their division. Like you said, they did not have the toughest schedule. We're going to find out what they're made of now that they're, they're playing against the cream of the crop. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers upset the Patriots. I'm going Chargers to upset the Patriots.
All
All
right.
right, let's move over to the NFC. Seahawks have the bye. The Rams Panthers.
Oh man. Really? You're really asking me this? Come on. The Rams,
Yes,
the Rams are the Super Bowl champions of
they
20.
lost to the Panthers.
I know they come on, it was an anomaly. They're winning,
And
they're winning this game. They're winning this game by 28 points.
wow, I think the spread's like 10. I don't.
Gamblers
I
home dogs. So
sure.
I have to be cautious about that, but
I
come on, the
went.
Rams are winning this game by
I
a
went
pretty
to a
good
couple.
margin.
I went to a couple of their games this year. I've watched every single game. It depends on which Rams show up. If it's the Rams that showed up against Carolina previously and showed up against Atlanta earlier this season, then this could be a long, long day for them. I think it's going to be a close game. I think a 17-9 kind of a game. Rams win. Part of the reasons that I think that they had a little trouble with Carolina in that first game during the regular season is many of their former coaches and a few of their former players are now in Carolina. And I think sometimes assistant coaches have a little bit of an advantage when they're facing their old head coach.
One thing about the Rams, it's not just that they have such arguably the strongest coaching in the league. It's that you remember when Tiger Woods was at his peak, you could see him working on aspects of his game leading up to the majors. He would build his year around the rhythms of the majors. Their coaching staff is so sophisticated that they're building towards the playoffs, the Rams are. So I think what you've seen, especially in this last game in week 18, what you've seen is things starting to come together where they were resting guys that were hurt in the prior weeks. They played all their starters in week 18. You saw it all start to come together. So their defense looks like the top 5 defense that it is. Their offense really started to click on all cylinders. So I think that they've been building up to this point. That's why I think this game is going to be a no-brainer for
All
the
right,
Rams.
let's see how that turns out. And I will tell you, Seattle, San Francisco, when you just look at them on paper, they're three-headed monsters. They've got great passing, great rushing, some pretty good defense, though the Niners are beat up right now. Seattle has a fantastic defense, and the Rams do have a little hole in their secondary with one or two of their corners, which they're getting healthy, though, now as they enter the playoffs. All right, Niners, Eagles. This is an easy one for me, but who are you taking?
So Jalen Hurts was talking a lot about consulting with Michael Jordan to figure out how to stay motivated after a championship. I think that all went out the window. I don't see. Yeah, they won the division, but let's face it, it's a weak division that they won. I don't see the 49ers had a much rougher schedule at the end of the day. They played much tougher competition. The 49ers are just a stronger team from top to bottom. And I don't buy the whole, I'm finding motivation to be a repeat champion. I don't buy the whole Jalen Hurts thing.
Well, 49ers are beat up defensively. I'm going to go with the 49ers as well. Part of the things that come into play when it comes to repeating as successful teams, especially in the NFL, is how much you lose. If you win the Super Bowl or you make it to the conference championship or make a good playoff run, you lose players and you lose coaches, and that's what happened to Philadelphia. They've lost a little bit of both, and it's hard to turn around and recover quickly. All right, finally, Bears Packers.
This could be like 6-3. This could go one way or the other because I mean I don't know if you check the weather reports in Chicago, but this thing could be gnarly. This could be another ice bowl, a slush
the frozen tundra.
That's right. That's right. So I'm going 6-3 Bears.
6-3 Bears. I think it's Bears all the way. We don't know what Love's health status is. I think even with him in there, I think Chicago is close to hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. Ben Johnson and Caleb, Williams button heads a little bit as many successful coach quarterback combos will do. But we'll see. I mean, the Bears have been a little inconsistent, but I just think this is a time where they're going to shine. We'll see what happens on that. So there you have it. Now, again, the two teams that have the byes, Broncos and Seahawks, as the playoffs start, I will allow you to choose who's going to come out of each conference, sir.
So okay. So I am not buying the Seahawks coming out of the NFC. I think the Rams are going all the way. Um, the game I'm really interested to see is the Rams will end up playing the 49ers. And then out of that game, I do think the Rams are going to come out and be go to the
Wow.
Super Bowl.
So you have the Rams going to the Super Bowl
Yeah.
against?
Okay. So if the if the if it's the Bills' year, it's the Bills' year. But if the Bills are the Bills, then it's the Broncos. I really think that Bo Nix is for real. I think their defense is arguably the best in the league. This is a strong team and well coached, just from top to bottom. This is a really strong organization. I'm really
Okay.
impressed with the Broncos. So
So your answer is Rams versus Bills or Broncos?
I'm going to say the Broncos. I'm going to
Okay.
say Buffalo does Buffalo,
Yeah.
and they get a lot of their fans just sucking down battery acid because of how bitter they are about
Oh my
Buffalo
gosh.
being Buffalo and
Okay.
it's Broncos, Rams,
Okay.
and
I
we'll wait until closer to the Super Bowl to start making our picks.
Well, at least wanted to have you on record going into the playoffs. I agree. I think the Broncos come out of the AFC. The old expression, defenses win Super Bowls. And so I think the Broncos are going to outlast everybody in that conference. I'm torn on the NFC. I'm very reluctant to choose my
You don't want to
own
jinx
team,
it.
the Rams. When they're playing at their best, I think they're the best team in football. But they've just had some up and down moments this year that worry me a little bit. I think the 49ers can catch fire, so I'm with you there. The Bears could surprise people. I know I don't think I should pick my team, but I'm going to pick the Rams and Broncos.
There you go. There you go. So
There
we're
it
on the
goes.
same page. We're
All
literally on
right.
the same page. All
And
right.
we're gonna move right from those playoffs, and we're gonna go right into the college football playoffs.
And
And
listen, based on how
yeah,
successful I was at picking the last round of playoffs in college football, you should definitely listen to my picks in all of these, all
you,
of the
you know,
NFL, the college.
I was
Yeah,
looking bad. Now I'm looking good again.
yeah.
I said Alabama shouldn't have been there, and then they won their first game, and then they got destroyed in the second game. So I turned out to be right after all. I said I didn't want to see Alabama again because I just felt like they losing 3 games over the regular season. I don't need to see more. I will tell you this, just big picture. The championship game is until January 19th, and that's
It
ridiculous.
is
And I think
Yeah,
a couple of the coaches have been complaining about that.
yeah.
One of them, Dan Lanning at Oregon, who said everything should end New Year's Day. I
And
totally
absolutely.
agree with him.
I
I
mean,
totally agree with him.
you look at Ole Miss. Ole
Yeah.
Miss is in a pickle because
Yes.
half their staff is already hired at
Okay.
LSU.
They
It's an
don't know.
impossible situation.
They do not know who some of their assistant coaches will be, and their new head coach, who was the defensive coordinator under Lane Kiffin, said, "Oh, I'm not worried about it." Well, he should be worried about
He
it
should be
because
worried
those
about it.
players are going to go into the meeting room and maybe not recognize anybody. So, but let's say this: the teams that have advanced, you got Oregon playing Indiana. In
Oregon is the only team that I was right about in this last round of the
Yeah, really.
playoffs.
So Oregon plays Indiana, and they played each other already, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Indiana won that game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was a well played
Good
game,
game.
but
It's a good game. And then Ole Miss against Miami, and I think both of those are a surprise coming out of that side over there. I think people expected Ohio State to be there. They were upset by Miami, who some folks thought shouldn't have been there. Remember the
yeah,
discussions over, oh, Notre
Notre
Dame should
Dame,
be
yeah.
there, not Miami. Well, Miami's gone on a nice little run here, and here they are in the semifinals. They're going to play Ole Miss. Ole Miss might be kind of the favorite, sentimental favorite in light of
Yeah.
what they've been going through. Lane Kiffin running over to LSU. I don't blame him for that. Like you said, the system's too screwed up that a team loses its coach. And when you have a chance of playing a national championship is just ridiculous. But I understand that because you're recruiting against the new team, so
Yeah.
that makes sense. But if you end the season earlier and tell coaches they can't leave until after their last game, then I don't, then that could fix things pretty quickly. So do you have Indiana or Oregon winning? You're not an Indiana guy. You don't buy into that Indiana thing.
I've been converted. I have
Okay.
absolutely been. I watched that game. I learned a little bit more about the coach. Man, that guy, he's what we call a red ass. He know Like no, can we curse? Do we get the explicit rating on this? No
I don't know.
BS.
No
No
BS.
BS with that kid. And
Yeah,
man, he is impressive. He paid his dues. He came up through the ranks and D2 schools, and
sure.
that is such a well-oiled machine. That team. I was
He's old
so impressed
school.
with Indiana.
He is old school. I mean, he's a get in your face coach. I look, when I played high school football back in the day, coaches could still put their hands on us, man. And
Yeah,
there was a lot of face mask grabbing. And
yeah.
I remember one of my teammates getting kicked in the butt several times and pushed around, shoved around. I have to tell you, as much as I know, abuse is awful. That we all know that in the football setting, it didn't bother me. Now, of course I played quarterback, so I had a red jersey on, and you really couldn't mess with the quarterback. But the names that our coach had for us, I still love this guy like a dad. And nobody ever got hurt. Nobody was
Yeah,
ever physically hurt. We were always a team that stayed there. But anyway, that Signetti just is got that old school feel to him. I
yeah.
think Indiana's going to win the whole thing. They're going to be an undefeated
I think
champion.
you're
I
right.
think.
I think you're right. I was so impressed with because I've watched a lot. I haven't watched enough Indiana. I watched maybe three of their games this year, but I watched a lot of Alabama this year,
Yeah.
and boy, oh boy, they manhandled Alabama.
hmm
And
And if in
what
well,
I
because
thought was the
yeah,
best. The SEC is
yeah.
basically the NFL light.
They say.
Yeah, yeah.
They
But no,
say.
Indiana
Is it
really
still? So
proved its
Indiana
mettle. Man,
pounded
I'm
them.
thoroughly
Uh,
impressed. Yeah.
Indiana can watch the Oregon Texas Tech game to see how to handle Oregon because Oregon faced a stingy defense there, and they will again with Indiana. And I think my fear is when you get to the championship, it's going to be Indiana and either Ole Miss or Miami. I'll pull for Ole Miss just again for the sentimental reasons.
Yeah, to win on spite. Yeah.
But I just think whoever meets Indiana is going to get crushed.
Yeah.
You know
So
that
Ole Miss,
that's
Miami. You know what's interesting about that game is Miami has really strong D, and they've had a knack for setting the pace of the game. So the question is it Miami's defense and their ability to set the pace of the game, or is it Ole Miss's really dynamic offense that wins the day? I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss is going to win this game. As much as I love my adopted nephew Luke Cohen, who's a sports guy in Miami, studying sports business in Miami. One of my best friend's sons who's going to school there. I'd love to see Miami win for no other reason than Luke goes there. But I do think at the end of the day, Ole Miss is going to win just for spite, just to stick it to the NCAA.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Now and then they play a little bit on offense, a little bit of playground football, right?
Yeah,
where your quarterback's in trouble and he's going to run all over the field,
improvise and
back and
yeah,
forth, and
yeah,
improvise. And fun to watch at the college level. Doesn't necessarily work in the pro level.
yeah,
Every so often you get away with something like that.
yeah.
All right. We've had fun talking about making all our predictions. You ready to pop that culture?
Let's pop that culture.
All right.
Pop that culture.
Let's do it. I thought about this topic only because there was a story about the actor Jack Black who talked about the movie role that he regrets, not taking, and it was interesting because it was I think in one of it was The Incredibles, right? The animated superhero film, and I think he had an opportunity to be the villain in that one, and said that wound up not going his way, and I just thought that it would be interesting to talk about the ones that got away, like the famous roles that were almost or that were played by other actors that could have gone to somebody else. I'll give you some examples if you don't mind. There were rumors that Madonna was supposed to be the Catwoman in Batman Returns in 1992. I think that one was that Nicole Kidman. Oh, no, Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle
wound up
Pfeiffer,
doing
yeah.
that, right? They say Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be in play Oliver in Call Me by Your Name. Terrific actor that would have played a little bit differently than it wound up doing. Initially in the 90s, there was talk about doing the Wicked movie, and Demi Moore, her name popped up as a possible Elphaba, and that one I can't imagine anybody, but the way the current cast went down, which was fantastic. That's a movie I highly recommend. Amanda Seyfried was talked about as Glinda in Wicked. The same thing. That was Ariana Grande who took that role. I'm trying to think of some other ones here that might have excited you.
The one that I would have loved to have heard is Chris Farley as Shrek.
So it was rumored that Chris Farley would be
Well, he
Shrek,
did. He
right?
actually recorded a good chunk of that, but
Yeah.
he passed away in the middle of the recordings.
Isn't that something? And Mike
Yeah,
Myers stepped in,
Mike
and I
Myers.
can't imagine anybody else doing that. Can
Well,
you?
when you put some thought to imagining Shrek with the Chris Farley, it's a different character. He plays a
Totally
different
different.
character.
Right.
So it would have changed the entire franchise, but you could totally imagine Chris Farley doing a different iteration of that character. The other ones that weren't that weren't in that story that I was surprised. So I don't know if you know this, but Robert Redford was who they wanted for The Graduate. That was one that was that when you first mentioned this possibility. So that was one. There were readings because the character was written more for a Robert Redford type, but when Dustin, it was so opposite of a shorter guy, darker hair, more a sullen kind of a guy. But Dustin Hoffman just blew everybody
Was
away.
amazing. Let me rattle off a couple of other quick ones. Eddie Redmayne was talked about as Kylo Ren in the Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and in that
It would have
particular.
ruined his career.
You think so?
Oh yeah, because you got some of the greatest actors in when they rebooted that franchise
Yeah.
that did the worst performances of their careers. How do you get bad acting performance?
How
Some
do
of the people, just if you look at that cast, it was the worst performance.
Adam Driver, I thought, was terrific in that. I enjoyed watching Adam Driver in that role. A couple of other ones. Emma Watson was talked about as Mia in La La Land. And that one went to Emma Stone, of course, who was amazing. Miles Teller was going to be opposite her as Sebastian, and Gosling got that one. And then here's one that was interesting: John Krasinski as Steve Rogers in Captain America.
Oh yeah. I would have preferred that. I think I would have enjoyed. I for some reason I can't watch that movie without, because I know some of the behind the scenes of the Captain America, the guy who played it, and he wasn't the nicest guy on the set. So I would have preferred another actor in that.
I'll do two more. Will Smith as Neo in Matrix.
Oh, big miss, swing and miss.
Keanu
One of the few
Reeves,
big misses.
yeah.
And what was the movie that he Wild Wild West? He did
Yeah,
Wild Wild
that
West
wasn't
instead.
not too peppy. Matthew McConaughey in Titanic as Jack instead of Leonardo DiCaprio.
I heard about that. I just can't see it because Matthew McConaughey, because DiCaprio brought kind of the street urchin to that role
Yeah.
that was required. I don't see. I mean, McConaughey is a great actor.
Oh,
He
he's
has a lot of
wonderful.
range.
Yeah.
but not at that point in his development as a craftsman, as an actor. I
And
just
let me-
can't see him pulling that off.
And let me bring it back to sports because that's what we do. East meets West sports. How about O.J. Simpson as the Terminator
For heaven's sake, are you kidding me?
in The
I saw that
Terminator
too.
in 1984? Here's one, though, I'll tell you. A lot of folks didn't know. Well, some folks have probably heard this, but I learned this in an interview with him. I was interviewing him on our morning show. Tom Selleck, while he was the star of Magnum P.I., was offered Indiana Jones.
Oh, that's right. I heard about that.
And which Harrison Ford, of course, took and made
He totally
and helped make
could've
that
pulled that
franchise
off.
blew that. They wouldn't let him out.
Out of the TV contract.
Yeah, to go do that
that's
film.
interesting.
So he was he admits, he goes, I certainly have some regret on that, but there was nothing I could do about it. So it's not like he turned it down because he wanted to. Right.
The other one I was surprised that they didn't talk about
Yeah.
because maybe this is going too far back. But did you know that De Niro was being under serious consideration for Sonny Corleone?
No, I didn't know that.
So if you watch some of the behind the scenes that they did for the making of, and they show the auditions and the readings. De Niro comes in and he does that scene. You're taking this very personally, bada bing all over your Ivy League suit, and he does a great job. But Coppola already knew by the time that they were reading for it that they were going to do part 2, and he
Pacino?
wanted him for the young
As the young Vito, which was that's fantastic. That one worked out, wouldn't you say?
That worked out pretty well.
That
worked out pretty well.
Well, that's it for us, Corey. A great start to the new year, I think. And we just want to remind everybody, I'm Rick Garcia. He's Corey Nathan. It's East meets West. Thanks for joining us.
And don't forget, let everyone know you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. This was fun, Rick. Thanks so much.
A lot of fun. Have a great one.
You too.
Baby got